Can everybody see my shared screen?
Yep.
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 I'm not a huge fan of vanilla PowerPoints, and those of you who were here last time round, I use sketchnoting and things, but today I'm not going to be talking for very long, so I've just gone to some fairly basic slides to accompany the proceedings. And okay, so first of all, welcome to everybody. There are some faces that I know, and some that I know perhaps less well, but certainly some people who were there, who were at the meeting last month, which is good. I'm going to just spend probably 10 minutes just recapping where we are, why I'm here, where we got to, how we got to this particular point, a little bit about what we did last time round. And then for the bulk of this session, I'll explain why I've gone down this route in a short while, but for the bulk of the session, I've got a few discussion topics that I'd like us to kind of mull over. So for the benefit of those who are kind of new to Agile in education and perhaps not seen me before, I'll just give you a bit of an overview of what we did last time around and why I got here. So sometime last year, I read Scrum, The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time by Scrum co-creator Jeff Sutherland, which several of you may well know. And one of the chapters talked about the work of young Mr. Willy Wijnands, who's here with us today. And as I think many of you know Willy, so probably don't need an introduction, but just in case, Willy's a Dutch science teacher who introduced a variant of Scrum into his classroom called EduScrum. And this book mentioned Willy in one of the chapters. And the idea intrigued me, and I kind of spent the following months pondering how Scrum and other progressive Agile initiatives might help improve how modern education is effective, how effective it is. But I held the idea of me kind of influencing or inspiring change in the way young people are educated as kind of an unrealistic fantasy, especially because I don't work in education myself. But one day in June, I woke up and thought, I'm Agile. Why not treat the problem as an Agile challenge? And rather than seeing kind of the whole overwhelming mountain, let's attempt to create some sort of value in a series of small steps that we can learn from. And within an hour, I'd created the meetup group, and a month later, the community of which you're all now a part was born. And I'm really glad that Willy's here today, because if everything goes disastrously wrong tonight, then I can genuinely say it's all his fault. And it's something which I would never even ever dream of doing behind his back. So thanks for showing up and giving me an excuse if it all goes wrong, but welcome. And in the July meeting, the first meeting, I gave a similar sort of overview and then went on to present kind of my personal view of why I think there's work to be done, and also to provide an overview of some of the key concepts of Agile progressive thinking that I and lots of people think might have some value. So I'm not going to go over all of that in detail again, but I can say that if anybody's interested and they haven't seen it yet, the video of last session is available on to internet, and I'll show you a couple of resources now, and we can have a little look at what the resources I put together. So I've set up a YouTube channel where I've currently just popped in the videos from the last session, but it's my intention to record anything interesting that we do and pop those videos up on the YouTube channel. And who knows, one day it might grow into something bigger, I don't know, but at the moment it's just generally for our use. And I've also got a slide share where we can pop up any things of interest, but in particular the notes and the copies of the Jamboards from these sessions, so anybody can access them if they wish to. I've also got a blog site which I put together, which I'm hopefully going to build into a mixture of kind of resources that people can dip into, but also my own kind of personal thoughts on things that I observe and things that I learn, because this is a learning journey for me as much as anything else. So hopefully I'm going to be learning a lot, and my views and opinions are going to change as I go along. So that's what that blog site's for. And all of these links that you can see on the slide are on the resource page on that website. So if you want to go and visit any of these, then that's the best place to go.
Don't lock it, just close it.
We've also got something old-fashioned, a forum. I've only popped this in there because the meetup group, meetup.com, has a forum, a message board facility. So I just figured I'd make it available, and if our numbers grow and people find it a good place to have a chat, then it's there. But obviously at the moment it's not doing very much, but it's there if people want. And I've also set up a Twitter feed. So if you just want to keep an eye on kind of up-to-the-minute news about things going on, then I'll try and feed that with as much information as I can. And then finally, there's a LinkedIn group as well, just for general discussion and sharing of news. So all of these things are things I've just set up in the last month, just hopefully to help build a community and kind of grow discussion and support the discussion. So you're all welcome to make use of those as much as you like. Okay. After my chat during last month's session, we broke out into a series of breakout rooms, and we had some chats about the kind of vision that we think we might be able to, the things that we might be able to achieve as part of this community, as part of this group. And I'd like to share those kind of conclusions with you now. I think we had 3 or 4 active groups all coming up with their own kind of ideas, and I've just taken basically all of the stickies that came out of those sessions and kind of grouped them together in a fairly rough and ready way. But they seem to fit into some reasons why we all think we're here. Also some kind of what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do and how are we trying to do it? They kind of merge into a bit blurry across the edges there. But also we had a few thoughts about barriers, kind of challenges that we face if we're going to try and make any kind of progress or add any sort of value to the discussions that are already out there. And I think of all the things, probably these are perhaps the most powerful and the most valuable of what came out of those sessions. But I think one very, very obvious thing, which is obvious right from the start, is that we get a lot of interest from a lot of people, but mostly from people who are Agile practitioners, and less so from people who are, certainly less so from teachers. I know certainly today we've got a lot of people who are working in education, but we've got a challenge to reach out to professionals who are, professional teachers who are actually working on the coalface. And I think that's the biggest challenge, not least of all that teachers are incredibly busy and there's so much pressure, especially now with COVID and all that sort of stuff. But also there's this issue that's mentioned in the barriers that I'm an Agile professional. It's kind of a bit insulting me just waltzing along and knocking on the door of education institutions saying, I've got these great ideas, stop what you're doing and just do what I say. Is obviously a ridiculous idea, but I do think I need to be respectful, and the other Agile practitioners need to be respectful of the fact that we're trying to make suggestions and have discussions with people who know what they're doing and have got a great deal of experience and expertise in the area. So I'm just very wary that I don't want to sort of rush in and just upset people and insult people by not respecting their professionalism and their knowledge and their expertise. So all of that came out in the discussions. And one thing which I wasn't particularly expecting myself was this idea of including parents in this mission. And I think obviously with COVID, that's something that perhaps is quite an interesting angle, that a lot of parents have been dragged into the homeschooling mindset, and these sorts of progressive agile ideas can be helpful to them as well. And I think that also could be a way to perhaps publicize and advertise the concepts to schools. If they can see that parents are taking on some of these ideas, then maybe the message can get across that way. And those of you who weren't here the first time around, I think it's worth pointing out that that I quite see this as a kind of a grassroots movement, rather than trying to kind of tackle the institutions and the politicians and trying to work at things from a high level, because there's plenty of people far more capable than I at trying to do that. So maybe a good idea is to try and tackle things from the grassroots level. So rather than going in and trying to force schools to change, which I don't think we have the power to do, if we can just make teachers, and children and parents aware that there are these ideas out there, and allow the discussions to take place and allow the debate to take place, I think that's, from my point of view, perhaps the best thing that we can do to help add value. It also came out, obviously, that, oops, sorry, a rather wobbly mouse there. Yeah, I think the idea of sharing experiences and stories is one of the most powerful ways of putting across a point of view. And I think it's, as I'll talk in a moment, there's a lot of interest from international communities, lots of people from all around the world who sort of popped up and said, I'm interested in what you're doing. And originally I kind of thought that was my original thought, that this was going to be a UK focused thing. And it's very obvious now that it isn't, and it doesn't have to be, and it's a worldwide problem. And that's brilliant that everybody from all around the world is interested in joining in, because there are fantastic experiences and fantastic stories from all around the world that need to be told. And I think if we can try and integrate and involve as many people as we can from as many different backgrounds as we can in telling those stories, then I think we're going to have a much more powerful message for everybody. So I'm really, really pleased that we've got an international contingent. It's fantastic. Also, suggestion maybe that we can start to build some resources. Maybe there's this feeling that possibly there's some confusion, potential confusion, because there's lots of different strands of Agile, and what is Agile anyway? It's kind of a difficult thing to encapsulate. I know obviously we've got some strong believers in EduScrum here, and I think that's a really, really important angle to take. But I'm also like to take a holistic view, that there are lots of other things that we could bring in, such as sketchnoting is a big thing of mine that I love. And I think that's going to be so powerful if we can just introduce that idea to people. So yeah, we could help put across a nice, clear message to people about what Agile actually is, and what sorts of strands exist, and how they can perhaps access information about those different strands. So not just EduScrum, but EduScrum is obviously an important pillar, but not just EduScrum. So that came out, and just before we go back, I should stop clicking my mouse. I apologise. Yeah, so it was pointed out that teachers are swimming against a huge tide of huge workload, not having enough time to stop and take stock, let alone discuss with peers. And we need to try and help teachers to work more sustainably, which is obviously a challenge, just to find enough time for teachers to be able to listen to what we have to say. Also, this idea that educational reform contains kind of many passionate and sometimes conflicting views, and that not everybody is going to think that we're talking sense. And I'm not frightened by that. I think that's good. I think the important thing is just to encourage debate. And I don't say for a second that I have the right answers at all. but I think there are plenty of people around who have something that they can contribute to the debate, and I think that's good. Just to move my board out of the way. Yeah, and as we touched on before, that at present the community is dominated by Agile practitioners from outside education, so that we need to just be wary of how we can provide value without kind of alienating those people who are actually in education. So that's a kind of 3 or 4 minute summary of the conclusions from last month's meeting. And hopefully we can kind of feed off these ideas and help to build a vision of where we want to go with this project of ours. So that's really the full summary of where we got to this particular point. So what am I planning for the rest of the evening? Well, trying to take on board these comments from the last session, I tried to come up with a suitable program, and it's amazing how challenging something that seems quite straightforward can be, because I didn't have any idea of whether we'd get lots of teachers suddenly turn up who had no idea what Agile was. Also conscious that we've got a problem that I'd like to tackle specifically in the UK, but we've got this fantastic international audience. So I wanted to find a way to engage all the different elements that could turn up, all the different people with all the different backgrounds that could turn up. So I plumped for having a kind of a discussion-based session this week. But also I think it's quite important to get the timing right, that I'm kind of been reluctant to rush into organising lots of webinars about EduScrum and Kanban and sketchnoting, etc., because those are all fantastic things, and I think it's a good idea that we get round to that. But I think we need to kind of have the appropriate audience assembled before we start doing that, because certainly last month and I think this month also, the vast majority of people attending were already familiar with most of at least the Agile concepts and things like sketchnoting and stuff like that. I think most people would love to see something about EduScrum, a lot of interest in that, but I think it would be great if we can try and get a few more teachers present so that they can benefit from it as well. So that's my reasoning, that's my logic why I've kind of gone down the discussion route rather than the webinar route at this stage. But hopefully sooner than later we can start to arrange those sorts of sessions as well. So in a moment I'm going to drop in a link to a Jamboard on the chat, and in the Jamboard on page 2 there are going to be 3 rooms represented, each with a different topic. And in the first room, the topic is to discuss how we can best reach out to teachers and those on the coalface, appreciating how much pressure they're all under, and also respecting their position as teaching professionals when many of us aren't. So that's discussion topic number 1. Discussion topic in room 2 is to play with the idea of organising a festival to celebrate Agile thinking in education around the world. That's something I've mentioned to 1 or 2 of you, and I think it sounds like quite an attractive idea to kind of arrange something. So that was room 2. Room 3, I don't think there is anybody here who is a complete Agile novice. But if you feel you are a complete Agile novice and you're really here to kind of learn about the principles of Agile, what is it, what's Scrum all about, where does it come from, then there is a room there for people to go to, and I'll spend some time going over some of the fundamentals just to bring people up to speed. But I think that room is probably going to be empty. So the basic idea is that when I paste the link in just a couple of moments, I'd like you to pop along to the Jamboard, which, if you've not heard of Jamboard before, it's basically a whiteboard, interactive whiteboard that Google offer, and you can just basically create stickies on there and annotate it and put notes on there. So I'd like to go across to the Jamboard, go along to page 2, frame number 2, and literally just drop a sticky with your name on it underneath the room number that you're most interested in, the one that floats your boat. So if you're interested in kind of having a discussion about how best to reach out to teachers, then pop your name under room 2. If you're interested in the idea of organising a festival, then pop your name under room 2. And then if there's anybody who's an Agile novice, then a newbie, then pop your name under room 3. And we'll create some breakout groups and go and have some really meaty, juicy discussions. So does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool, excellent. Right, so I'm just going to stop my share for a moment and go and grab myself the link to post into the board.
Andy, I did have a quick question just to kind of revise the topics really quick. Is that okay?
Of course, far away.
The first one is just how to get teachers on board, right? And then second one is how to create an education festival. Now, is this just sort of exploratory education wise or Agile specific?
Yeah, the idea was Agile specific in kind of its widest sense. So that was the idea. But discussions, you know, wherever it leads, let's be Agile. If the discussion goes off in a tangent that you all feel is good, then I have no complaints.
Okay.
Let's just run with it.
Sounds good. Okay. Just wanted to clarify.